Hello, ninjas. This is Miss Briscoe here for our informative writing kickoff lesson. I'm so glad that you guys are going to be starting this informative writing unit. It's very similar to our opinion writing unit, but we're going to start off with today's lesson talking about the difference between informative writing and opinion writing. So, we just finished an opinion writing unit and you learned how to form an opinion based on your own ideas in a text. You learned how to support your opinion with reasons and how to find text details to support your reasons. We are going to be taking what we know about opinion writing and using it to help us learn how to write an informative writing essay. So we're going to talk about, well, what is informative writing? How is that different from opinion writing? And we know that opinion writing, we're giving our own thoughts and our own feelings, our own perspective about a certain topic. Sometimes when we write opinion papers, we're trying to persuade a reader to see our point of view or to do something that we think is right. So, for example, you guys have written some papers that have to do with some topics about school and animals. So, that's opinion writing. With informative writing, it is a little bit different. It explains a topic to a reader. So, you're explaining something. It has an overall topic. Sometimes it has to do with like a decreased water supply or Disney or vacations where something is being explained. And the best example I have for informative writing is like an article, something that you would read um, about a certain topic that doesn't have an opinion. It's just giving you facts. It has a lot of facts that it's going to give you. There's details that explain the topic. So, for example, if we have a topic on Disney, the details could explain the rides at Disney, the food at Disney, and the shows at Disney. Those would be the details. They would be smaller details that have to do with Disney. It is not written to persuade, kind of what we talked about before. It's not something that you'd write to persuade a reader. You're giving mainly facts. There's many facts that are given in an informative writing. You're just stating the information. You're explaining it. You're not necessarily giving your opinion on it. So that is what informative writing is. We're going to be explaining topics to our readers, and we use informative writing for many different reasons. Authors write informative writing because they want to explain something to their readers. They want to give them information to help them learn and gain knowledge about something. We do informative writing if we are interested in a topic or we want to explain something to somebody. We as writers would do that. So that's a little bit about informative writing, and we're going to dive deeper into it as we work through our module. But this is just a brief overview. So today's goal, if you'll notice, you have your scale here, and remember that we're starting off informative writing. For some of you, this is the first time that you will be seeing this scale. Many of you have been writing informative writing pieces for many years. Sometimes informative writing comes in the form of a research paper, in the form of a brochure. So, for example, a survival brochure. Sometimes it comes in the form of an article or a newspaper. So you've been surrounded by informative writing. You might not have called it informative writing, but we all have seen it, read it, written it before. It's something you've done. So our learning goal for today's lesson is I can organize and plan an informative writing piece. So today we're going to organize and plan an informative writing piece. And this is our scale. So this is the first lesson in this module. And it's okay if you're down at a 1. That's where you would start off your learning path. We would start off at a 1. Slowly we would gain some knowledge and some skills to move up to a 2. And then by the end of the unit, our goal is to be at a 3, to be able to complete the items that are listed in the 3. So the scale, you saw it before this lesson. You talked about it with your learning guide, and you submitted where you thought you were on this scale with a little explanation. So this is our learning scale for our informative writing, and today we are going to organize and plan an informative writing piece. So You were asked to read this prompt along with some articles before we started this lesson. So this is the prompt that we will be writing our essay to today. It tells us what we need to write about. So we've seen these prompts before. We saw them with our opinion writing. We've seen them before, but this one's a little bit different. So we're going to point out, how can we tell the difference between an opinion writing prompt and an informative writing prompt? And there's one really big difference is when we were looking at opinion writing prompts, it said write an essay in which you give your opinion. This is an informative writing prompt, and the reason that I know that is because it says write an informative essay. It's telling me that I need to write an essay informing people about a topic, about something. So I know just by those words in my prompt that I'm going to be explaining, not giving my opinion. The second part of this prompt that's really important is, what am I going to be informing people about? What am I going to explain? And so the second part of this prompt says about the effects wild animals and humans have on each other when they live in the same area. So I'm going to be writing an informative essay about the effects that animals and humans have on each other when they live in the same area. That is my writing prompt. And I can go further into this writing prompt, and it's saying use information from the passage. It's giving me my steps that I need to read the passages, plan my response, write it, and then edit and revise it. So it's giving me my steps, and it's also giving me a checklist that's saying I need an introduction, information from the passages to support, and a conclusion. So it's giving me all the information I need right here to write my informative essay in my prompt. And before this lesson, you read a couple different articles. We had 3 different articles to read. The first one was titled The Howl Next Door. The second one was titled Power Chewers. It had a nice little bar graph right there for us that gave us some information about how many people lost power due to squirrels. And we had a third source about pigeons and people. So there were 3 different articles that we had to read, and then we were asked that we needed to plan and write an essay. So again, our prompt is that we need to write an essay based on the effects of wild animals and humans have on each other when they live in the same area. So before we get into talking about this prompt and how we can start writing our essay, we need to talk about how we plan an informative essay. We've learned how to plan an opinion essay. We used an Oreo graphic organizer. Well, now we're going to be planning an informative essay, and I have to tell you the graphic organizer is pretty similar. It doesn't have the Oreo acronym, but it is laid out very similar to the Oreo graphic organizer. So as you can see on this screen, this is the organizer that we would use for informative writing. It has the same structure as our Oreo. We start off with our topic grabber, introduction, we end with a conclusion, and in between we have details in our evidence. So it's very similar to the Oreo graphic organizer, a little bit different. So as we look at this graphic organizer that we can use to plan our informative essay, this first box right here, that is our grabber and our hook. We're still going to grab our reader's attention. We still need something that's going to make our reader want to read our essay. So that's going to go in that top box. The second thing is your topic sentence that explains what your essay will be about. So there are some similarities and differences between this and our opinion. So in our opinion, we had a topic sentence which was our opinion. In an informative writing piece, you have a topic sentence that explains what your whole essay will be about. It's not going to be an opinion statement, but they both have a grabber. So that's going to be that very top part of your planning piece. And then if you'll notice, you have 3 details that you would fill in. You could have 2. Sometimes you only have 2, just like when we wrote our opinion essays, we only had 2 reasons. So there are 3 here in case you have 3, but these are going to be details that support your topic. These are going to be details about what your topic is. You're going to support it. So for example, when we were talking about Disney, if we were going to write an essay about Disney, my topic would be Disney World. Detail 1 would be I would explain the rides at Disney World. Detail 2 would be me explaining the food at Disney World. And detail 3 could be me explaining the different shows that happen at Disney World. So all these details have to do with my topic of Disney World. So these would be your topics. So you would list 2 to 3. You have to have 2, but sometimes people want to have a third one, and that's okay. And then you have your evidence and support boxes. And this is just like we had with our opinion writing. You're going to go and find evidence from the text that's going to support your details. You want 2 to 3 pieces of evidence from the text. So you can either quote something from the text or you can paraphrase. But you want to have at least 2 to 3 pieces from the text, and then you're also going to explain how these details support your topic. So you can put in some of your own thoughts. And then the last one is your conclusion. So you're restating your topic and you're leaving your reader with a thought or a question. So you're going to leave them with that those thoughts or questions. So those are going to be the sections of this organizer. And you should have this organizer printed out because you're going to be filling this out with me today. So as we move through and plan our paper, you're going to be filling out an organizer with me through this lesson. So let's come back to our prompt. And so our prompt again is we're writing an informative essay about the effects that wild animals and humans have on each other when they live in the same area. So we read about many different animal and humans interactions. We read about pigeons, we read about squirrels. There were lots of different animals that we read about and how the humans and the animals affected each other. So we already know what our topic is going to be. We know that our topic is going to be the effects that wild animals and humans have on each other. So I'm going to come in and I'm going to look at this first section of my graphic organizer. I need a grabber and a hook that's going to catch my reader's attention, and I need a topic sentence. Now the grabber and the hook is something that I can make up out of my own thoughts. I can create that grabber and hook. The topic sentence, I'm going to use part of the prompt to create my topic sentence because I already was given my topic. My topic is I have to explain that humans and animals have an effect on each other when they live in the same area. So this is what I would put in my first section of my graphic organizer. I would first place my grabber, something that's going to catch my reader's attention. Lurking eyes in the dark, sharp teeth as long as nails, and messages flying around the sky. So as you can see, I've described each of the different animals that we learned about, something that describes them in a way that is my readers like, what in the world is going on? Like lurking eyes, sharp teeth, messages in the sky? Like that's all really, really weird. So they're grabbed in by that grabber and they're wanting to read more. The second thing that we wanted to put inside this topic grabber box was our topic sentence. So what I did is I went and I used the prompt, what it told me I was writing about, and I created a sentence that would let my reader know what I'm going to be writing about. So my topic sentence is, wild animals and humans have an effect on each other when they live in the same area. As simple as that. I've explained to my reader that I'm going to be talking about the effects that animals and humans have on each other. And that is my topic sentence. My reader is going to know what my essay is going to be about based on that sentence. So those are the 2 things that are required to go in that top box. If you'd like to put more, you can. Sometimes people have topic sentences that there's more than one sentence to explain their topic, or they need more than one sentence or a question for their grabber, and that's okay. The next thing that we want to do is we want details. So I need 3 details, 2 to 3 details that supports or explains how humans and animals affect each other. So again, I use the texts to come up with those 3 details. And the 3 details that I came up with are humans can learn from animals that live in the same area as them. So one of the effects is that humans can learn from the animals. The second one is that animals can cause problems for humans, so animals can cause a negative impact for humans. And the third detail is that wild animals can become pets and helpers to humans when they live in the same area. So those are the 3 details. Those are the 3 things that I saw when I read those articles. Those were the ways that animals and humans affected each other. So what I want you to do right now is I'm going to go back to my very first box. I want you to pause and I want you to add this to your graphic organizer. So go ahead and write this out or type it in your graphic organizer. You can change it if you'd like. If you want to, change the grabber or change the topic sentence, feel free to do that. But go ahead and pause the video and go ahead and fill out your graphic organizer top box with this information. All right, and now I'm also going to have you go ahead and fill in the 3 details in your graphic organizer. You can put in these details if you'd like, or you can come up with your own details. It's up to you. We are planning this essay together, so if you'd like to use these details, then I would love for you to do that. So go ahead and pause your video and add in those 3 details to your graphic organizer. All right, so hopefully you've added in your topic and grabber box and you have your 3 details box filled in. The next thing that you would need to do is we need to find evidence and support for those 3 details. So what I want you to try and do is I want you to try and pause the video and go back to the 3 articles and see if you can find some evidence or support to support those 3 details that I gave. See if you can read and find evidence or support for those 3 details. So pause the video, go back into those articles, see if you can find some evidence to support your details. All right, guys, so hopefully you found some really great evidence to support the details. I'm going to share with you the evidence that I found. You might have the same evidence, you might have different evidence. You can add this into your organizer if you'd like. If there's something that I found that you really want to add into your essay, feel free to put it in your graphic organizer. You can pause the video at any time. So for detail number 1 that shows that humans can learn from animals, I found a couple different sentences from the articles, but I also had some information from my own experiences. So the information that I have from my own experience was that I traveled to a national park in Tennessee. It's called Cades Cove, and I didn't see any coyotes there. A couple years ago, but when I went there this past year, there were coyotes everywhere. They were not afraid of people. They were out during the day and they were just everywhere. So I have personal experience of seeing these coyotes up and close and them not being scared of me and there just being a bunch of them in the park. So that was my own thought. And then I wrote down here that from source number 1, and I paraphrased because it was multiple sentences. But source number 1 explains that the park rangers are learning about their behavior through video monitoring. It also states that the park rangers are using these experiences to educate people about coyotes and how they are helping the parks. So this is a way that humans can learn from them, that we can learn about their behaviors and how they're actually helping, and we can help to teach people, just because there's coyotes everywhere, it doesn't mean it's a bad thing. So those were the details that I had to support, or those were the pieces of evidence I had to support my first detail. Like I said, you might have some different pieces of evidence, and you're more than welcome to use some of mine. My second detail is that animals can cause problems, and we read quite a few pieces of information from these articles talked about how animals caused some problems, mainly our squirrels. So some of the information that I got from the article, I quoted some from the article and I also paraphrased from the graph. So my evidence for how they cause problems is source number 2 states that squirrels' teeth never stop growing. They use their teeth constantly to grind them down. It also explains that squirrels are keeping their teeth busy on power wires. This has caused many outages in neighborhoods. The graph from source number 2 shows that there are thousands of power outages due to squirrels. So here's an example of squirrels having a negative impact on people. They're causing a problem. They're, making the power grids shut down because they're chewing. They're trying to grind their teeth and they're chewing. So those are some evidence pieces that I could support for detail 2. I didn't really have anything from my own thoughts. I didn't have power lost because a squirrel chewed on my wire. I see squirrels everywhere. I see them on power lines, but there really wasn't anything that I could add to this. I might add it later on when I'm writing my paper, but I just pulled evidence from the text for this box. And then detail number 3 is that they can become pets and helpers to humans when they live in the same area. So I found some evidence, and I also had some personal experience with this. So I was able to see a messenger pigeon at the state fair one year, and they were showing that these messenger pigeons were bringing messages from one side of the fair to the other. And I know in our article it was a lot larger distance that they were bringing these messages, but I was able to see it, and I thought it was really neat that they have trained these pigeons to do that. Now, source number 3, I was able to make a quote from that to support it, and it said that pigeons have been brought into cities for food, fun, and practical uses. They can also be trained as messengers and were used during many wars. So I could explain this evidence about how it's showing that they are pets. People are bringing them into their homes, and people are also using them as helpers. So this is evidence that would support my detail. So those are all the evidence from the text and my own mind. Like I said, you might have different ones that you found when you paused. You're more than welcome to use some of mine. You can do a combination of both, but those are the middle parts of our organizer when we're planning our informative writing piece. And the last part would be our conclusion. This is where we need to restate our topic and to leave our reader with a thought or a question. And so as you can see, there are many animals and human interactions which have many effects on each other when they live in the same area. So that was me restating my topic. I restated that animals and humans have different effects on each other. The thing that I left my reader with is the next time you're outside in the neighborhood or city, look around to see if you can spot any of these interactions. So I left my reader with kind of like a task or something to think about. I wanted them to know, like, hey, look, you could definitely probably see some of these interactions or think about different animal interactions in your neighborhood or city. So I've left them with a thought. So this would be our entire organizer completely filled out. And this is how we would write our essay using it. This first box, I would translate that into my first paragraph. I would add in a couple sentences. This would be the meat of my first paragraph. Detail 1 and the evidence for 1, that would be paragraph number 2. Detail number 2 and the evidence for number 2 would be paragraph number 3. Detail 3 and evidence for number 3 would be paragraph number 4. And my conclusion, that would be my last paragraph, paragraph number 5. So you have gone through this lesson and we have completed an entire informative essay organizational organizer. You can take all this information and you can easily go and write your essay. This is the hard work. This is what takes the longest of your time when you're planning an informative writing piece. So again, informative writing, we're explaining a topic to a reader. There's a main topic. It has supporting details. You're not writing to persuade, so you're not trying to persuade anyone or give your opinion. You're just mainly listing facts. You're listing information. You're explaining it. You're not necessarily trying to persuade or get somebody to do something. So think about where you are on this scale after we've gone through this process of planning our writing. Do you think you could do this on your own? Do you think you need more help with it? How do you feel about planning an informative writing piece?